I'm Nicole, 28, from Denver, Colorado. I met Ryan at a friend's game night. He was funny, charming, and a bit of a mess, but I liked the challenge. He worked in sales, but after a few months of dating, he lost his job. I offered to let him crash at my place for a few weeks while he got back on his feet. Weeks turned into months. I paid for everything: rent, groceries, utilities. He played video games, applied to jobs, and talked about starting a podcast. I believed he was just struggling. I wanted to be supportive. Then I noticed he became super protective of his phone. He'd leave the room to text, always face down. One night, I saw a notification pop up while he was in the shower, a heart emoji from someone named Tiffany. I opened the messages. They'd been talking for weeks. Flirty, gross, and intimate. He told her I was just a friend he was staying with temporarily. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. Instead, I waited until he left to run errands the next day. I packed his stuff, changed the locks, and called our landlord to remove him from the lease. Since it was my name on the rental, it wasn't hard. Then I Venmo'd him a charge titled, Rent, Food, Betrayal Tax, $3,200. He texted me, furious. Said I had no right to throw him out. I sent back a screenshot of the messages, and a laughing emoji. Then I blocked him. Sometimes, the best revenge is reclaiming your peace, and your space. The night I met Ryan Henderson changed everything. It was a crisp October evening in Denver. My friend Mackenzie was hosting one of her infamous game nights in her downtown loft. I almost didn't go. After a grueling week handling PR crises for my tech clients, all I wanted was my couch and a glass of Cabernet. But Mackenzie insisted, "Nicole, you haven't been out in weeks. Plus, I invited some new people. You might actually like one of them." I relented, threw on a casual sweater dress, and arrived fashionably late. That's when I spotted him across the room, tall, with messy brown hair and an easy smile that reached his hazel eyes. He was animatedly explaining something to a small group, hands gesturing wildly, everyone around him laughing. "That's Ryan," Mackenzie whispered. "He's Jordan's college roommate. Just moved here from Chicago. During Pictionary, we ended up on the same team. He was terrible at drawing but hilarious about it. When I correctly guessed his incomprehensible scribble was supposed to be the Rocky Mountains, he looked at me with genuine surprise. "How did you possibly know that?" he asked, impressed. "I'm good at reading between the lines," I replied with a smirk. We exchanged numbers that night. Our first date was at a hole-in-the-wall ramen place. He told me about growing up in Ohio, moving to Chicago for college, and now trying to make it in Denver's competitive sales environment. He had just landed a job with a software company 6 months ago. "The commission structure is insane," he said, eyes bright with possibility. "My buddy made 6 figures his first year." Ryan was refreshingly different from the meticulously put-together finance guys I usually dated. His apartment was a disaster when I first visited, pizza boxes stacked by the door, laundry hanging off every surface, but he was unapologetically himself. When I teased him about it, he just laughed. "I'm a work in progress, Nicole. But I'm worth the investment, I promise." The first 3 months were a whirlwind. Hiking in Boulder on weekends, trying every craft brewery in the city, staying up until 3 a.m. talking about everything and nothing. He was spontaneous in ways I wasn't, booking last-minute concert tickets, convincing me to call in sick for impromptu road trips to Aspen. Then came the call that changed everything. I was at work when Ryan phoned, his voice uncharacteristically small. They let the entire sales team go. Budget cuts. Effective immediately. I rushed over to his apartment after work. He was sitting in the dark, still in his button-down shirt from that morning, surrounded by empty beer bottles. "I really thought this was it, you know. The job that was finally going to set me up." His voice cracked. My landlord's already hassling me about next month's rent. I've got maybe 2 weeks before I'm screwed. The words left my mouth before I could think them through. Stay with me until you figure things out. Just for a few weeks. His eyes lit up. Really? You do that for me? Of course, I said, kissing his forehead. That's what partners do. The next day, Ryan showed up at my doorstep with 2 duffel bags and his Xbox. My tastefully decorated one-bedroom suddenly had a man's size 12 sneakers by the door and protein powder on my kitchen counter. But it was temporary, I reminded myself. Just until he found something new. The first few weeks, Ryan was diligent. I'd come home from work to find him hunched over his laptop at my dining table, dressed in a button-down as if he were going to an actual office. Applied to 17 jobs today, he'd announce proudly. Had a great call with a recruiter from Oracle. She says I'm perfect for this enterprise position they have. I'd cook dinner while he told me about promising leads and upcoming interviews. We'd fall asleep tangled together, and I'd whisper encouragements, something amazing is just around the corner. I can feel it. But as weeks stretched into the second month, subtle shifts began. The button-downs gave way to hoodies and sweatpants. The dining table command center migrated to the couch. The laptop was increasingly obscured by the glow of Xbox games. How's the job search going? I'd ask, setting my purse down after a 10-hour workday. Brutal market right now, he'd say, eyes not leaving the TV screen. Everyone wants 5 years of experience for entry-level positions. I didn't push. After all, rejection was hard, and Ryan's confidence seemed to be eroding with each passing week. Instead, I tried to be supportive in other ways, covering the groceries, not mentioning that he hadn't contributed to utilities, picking up his favorite beer when I noticed he was particularly down. I've been thinking, he said one evening, pausing his game, maybe traditional sales isn't where I'm meant to be. Oh. I hung my coat, intrigued by this rare moment of reflection. Yeah, I've been researching podcast growth strategies. The top 10 business podcasts make insane money through sponsorships. And with my sales background, I already know how to talk to people. That sounds interesting. I chose my words carefully. What kind of podcast are you thinking? For the next hour, Ryan enthusiastically outlined his vision for the hustle blueprint, interviews with entrepreneurs, side hustle strategies, investment tips. He'd already designed a logo and researched microphones. I just need about $2,000 for quality equipment, he finished, looking at me expectantly. Let's revisit that after you find something steady, I suggested gently. Maybe start with your phone for recording until you build an audience. He deflated visibly but agreed. The podcast planning consumed the next few weeks. I'd find notebooks filled with episode ideas and scribbled outlines. At least it was productive, I reasoned. Better than video games. 3 months into our temporary arrangement, I realized I couldn't remember the last time Ryan had mentioned an actual job interview. My savings were dwindling from covering twice the expenses I'd budgeted for. But every time I tried to broach the subject, Ryan had a new reason why things weren't working out. Companies ghost candidates now, it's so unprofessional, or the economy's tanking, no one's hiring, or my personal favorite, they went with an internal candidate, such bullshit. I started noticing other things too. If I came home unexpectedly during lunch, Ryan would quickly switch screens on his laptop. Once, I glimpsed what looked like a dating app before it disappeared into a minimized window. Just checking out competitors for podcast advertising, he explained when I asked. Then came the phone behavior. Ryan, who used to leave his phone casually wherever, suddenly became its vigilant guardian. It was always in his pocket, always on silent. He'd take calls on the balcony, voice low. If I entered the room while he was texting, he'd quickly flip the phone face down or lock the screen. I told myself I was being paranoid. That financial stress was making me suspicious and resentful. But the knot in my stomach grew. One Tuesday evening, I came home to find Ryan napping on the couch, his phone on the coffee table beside him. As I set down my grocery bags, a notification illuminated the screen. "Can't wait to see you again tomorrow." Last time was. The sender, Tiffany B. My hands went cold. I stood frozen, staring at those words until the screen went dark again. Then, moving silently, I picked up the phone. Ryan always used the same password for everything, his birth year. Sure enough, 1-9-9-3 opened the device. What I found gutted me. Hundreds of messages with this Tiffany person spanning the last 6 weeks. Flirtatious at first, then explicitly sexual. Photos exchanged. Plans made. "My roommate works late on Wednesdays," he'd written. "Come over around 7. Roommate. He'd referred to me as his roommate. In a different thread with someone named Jake, "Yeah man, living with Nicole is clutch right now. Free rent while I figure things out. She thinks we're exclusive but what she doesn't know won't hurt her, lol." The phone suddenly buzzed with a new message, startling me so badly I nearly dropped it. Another from Tiffany, "Wearing that red thing you like tomorrow." I heard the shower turn off down the hall. Quickly, I took screenshots and emailed them to myself, then returned the phone exactly as I'd found it. When Ryan emerged, towel around his waist, I was calmly unpacking groceries, my face a practiced mask from years of handling PR disasters. "Hey babe," he said, kissing my cheek. "You're home early." "Meeting got cancelled," I replied, my voice surprisingly steady. "I'm making that pasta you like." That night, as Ryan slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, my mind crystallizing into a cold, clear plan. The betrayal wasn't just the other women, it was the calculated deception, the exploitation of my generosity, the mockery behind my back. This wasn't just a breakup, this warranted an exorcism. The next morning, I left for work as usual, kissing Ryan goodbye. "Might be late tonight," I told him. "Big client presentation." "No problem," he said, already reaching for his Xbox controller. "I might grab drinks with Jordan anyway." Jordan. Another lie. I knew exactly where he'd be at 7 p.m. Instead of going to work, I drove to a cafe across town and made 3 phone calls, one to my landlord, one to a locksmith, and one to my boss to request an emergency personal day. My landlord, Maria, had always liked me. I'd been a model tenant for 3 years before Ryan entered the picture. When I explained the situation, minus the sordid details, she was sympathetic. "He's not on the lease, correct? And he hasn't established legal residency by receiving mail or paying bills?" "Correct," I confirmed. "It's been less than 6 months, and everything's in my name." "Then legally, he's considered a guest, and you have every right to withdraw your permission for him to stay," she assured me. "I'll email you documentation stating that he's not authorized to be on the premises. If he gives you any trouble, call the police and show them that." Next came the locksmith, scheduled for 2 p.m. Finally, I texted my friend Mackenzie, the only person who knew the full extent of Ryan's parasitic presence in my life. "It's happening today. Could use backup around 3. Her response was immediate, "Finally. I'll bring boxes and champagne." I spent the morning taking inventory of everything Ryan had brought into my apartment and everything I'd purchased for us during our relationship. I created a spreadsheet: groceries, $200 per month times 4 months, his portion of rent, $900 times 4, utilities, $150 times 4, dinners out I'd covered, clothes I'd bought him for interviews, the expensive wireless headphones for his birthday. The grand total, $5,850. I'd be generous and reduce it to $3,200. By the time the locksmith arrived, I'd already started methodically removing Ryan's presence from my home. Gaming magazines into boxes. Protein powders and energy drinks from my pantry. The locksmith, a grandfatherly man named Hector, worked quickly, making small talk as he replaced my deadbolt and doorknob. Moving day, huh? He asked, nodding at the boxes. Something like that, I replied. Just removing some clutter that doesn't serve me anymore. Mackenzie arrived as promised, taking one look at my face and wordlessly handing me a glass of champagne before diving into the packing. By 6 p.m., everything that belonged to Ryan was neatly boxed in the living room. I'd even laundered and folded his clothes, placing them carefully in suitcases. You know, most women would have set this stuff on fire, Mackenzie observed, sipping her champagne on my couch. I'm not most women, I replied. And this isn't about destruction, it's about removal. Clean, complete removal. At 6:30 p.m., right on schedule, I got the text. Ryan, working late tonight babe, don't wait up for dinner. Networking thing came up. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my banking app and sent a Venmo request to Ryan Henderson for $3,200 with the description, rent, food, betrayal tax. Mackenzie looked over my shoulder and whistled. Stone cold, Nicole. I love this for you. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. He has until midnight to collect his things. After that, they're going to Goodwill. You think he'll show? Mackenzie asked. Oh, he'll show, I said confidently. The second he sees that Venmo request, his entire house of cards collapses. I was right. At 8:43 p.m., my phone exploded with notifications. Ryan, what the actual fuck, Nicole? Ryan, is this some kind of joke? Ryan, call me right now. Then came the calls, one after another, which I declined. Finally, the text I was waiting for. Ryan, I'm coming over. We need to talk. 20 minutes later, aggressive knocking rattled my door. I nodded to Mackenzie, who slipped into my bedroom as planned, ready to call police if needed. I opened the door but left the security chain on. Ryan stood in the hallway, face flushed with anger. What the hell is going on? He demanded. Why can't I get in? My key doesn't work. Because it's not your key anymore, I said calmly. And this isn't your home. It never was. His expression shifted from anger to confusion. Babe, you're not making sense. Let me in so we can talk about this. Your things are packed, I continued in the same measured tone. You have until midnight to take them, or they'll be donated. And you owe me $3,200. Owe you? He laughed incredulously. For what? For months of rent, groceries, utilities, and the betrayal tax. It's all itemized in an email I sent you. His face changed then, a flicker of understanding followed by an attempt at damage control. Baby, I don't know what you think you know, but... I held up my phone, screen displaying one of the screenshots. Tiffany in red lingerie. His response, can't wait to peel that off tomorrow. The blood drained from his face. Your things. Midnight. Not a minute later. I began to close the door. He jammed his foot in the opening. You can't do this. I live here. I have rights. Actually, you don't, I replied, pushing harder against the door. You're not on the lease, you've paid for nothing, received no mail here. Legally, you're just an unwelcome guest. I have documentation from the landlord and can have police here in 5 minutes to remove you for trespassing. Your choice. Something in my voice, perhaps the absolute certainty, made him step back. I closed the door, locked it, and exhaled. 10 minutes later, my phone pinged with another text. Ryan, this is so fucked up. I'm getting my stuff but this isn't over. I didn't respond. Instead, I buzzed him up when he returned, leaving his boxes and suitcases in the hallway. I watched through the peephole as he made 4 trips, cursing under his breath, struggling with the awkward loads. Not once did I offer to help. After his final trip, standing in the hallway surrounded by the physical evidence of his failed deception, he looked directly at my door. "You're going to regret this, Nicole," he called out. "You think you're so perfect, but you just threw away the best thing that ever happened to you." From the safety of my apartment, I sent him one final text. "Check your email for the Venmo breakdown. I expect payment in full by Friday." I attached another screenshot of him and Tiffany for good measure. His response came seconds later, "Go to hell." I added calmly, "I've also texted Tiffany to let her know you're now homeless and unemployed. Turns out she and I have a mutual friend." Small world. This was a bluff, but he wouldn't know that. I blocked his number before he could respond. Mackenzie emerged from my bedroom, wide-eyed. "Holy shit, Nicole. That was the most badass thing I've ever witnessed." We stayed up late that night, finishing the champagne, purging my apartment of any lingering traces of Ryan. I deleted photos, untagged Facebook memories, and changed all my streaming passwords. A week later, to my genuine surprise, the Venmo notification appeared: "Ryan Henderson has paid you $3,200. No message attached." I never heard from him directly again, though mutual friends reported various versions of the story he was telling, that I'd gone crazy, that we'd agreed he could see other people, that I'd stolen his money. None of it stuck because, in the end, people recognized the pattern they'd seen before: Ryan, charming and parasitic, moving from host to host. As for me, I repainted my apartment, rearranged the furniture, and registered for a pottery class I'd always been interested in. Some nights, I'd sit on my balcony with a glass of wine, looking out at the Denver skyline, feeling something that took me weeks to identify. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even satisfaction from the revenge. It was peace. My space was mine again. My life was mine again. Sometimes, the most powerful revenge isn't making someone suffer, it's refusing to suffer yourself any longer. It's reclaiming what's yours: your peace, your power, and yes, your space. And sometimes, when you're really lucky, you get $3,200 in the process.